Good morning. How's everybody? I hope everyone is well. Hi. So here's a little follow-up video to the one I did before, talking about making a piece, designing a piece with the vintage lucite and some crystal and some check glass. This is where I'm at so far. So I wanted to come on and do a real quick video, talk some more about design process and how it's all unfolding. So let's see, where should we start? I'm going to try really hard. In watching back the prior video to this, I have to apologize to you. I know it was really shaky sometimes. You all must have gotten seasick or felt like you were in an earthquake or something. That's because the camera is actually on a tripod on the table that I work on here. So I realized it was a little bumpy and shaky sometimes, so I want to apologize for that. And some of you may have seen the shirt I was wearing yesterday. My old bum equipment sweatshirt that years ago I used it to Thompson's water seal deck stain a shed that we had built at the house. And yeah, so you saw that, and I'm sorry. It was clean. I didn't pull it out of the laundry. When I'm sitting here working, I'm just working. I'm in a zone. I just want to be warm and comfortable, and you know, I'm not thinking about what I'm wearing. It's cold up here where I live, and yeah, so sorry about that. I'll have to try to learn to keep some of these things in mind. Anyway, moving on. So where am I at so far? I have decided with this piece, there are going to be different component types. Let me get my pliers and I will show you what I mean. So we have the main pendant, right? Which is a little leather tassel, some check glass. This is a gemstone called Hyperscene. It has a real velvety schiller effect to it. So this is my pendant. So that's one component that I already had made. And I made these yesterday. And this is some of the vintage lucite, which is the cranberry colored beads, and then black crystal. And you'll see I've put some bead caps on them. And all the bead caps are different. This is part of my design aesthetic. Bohemian, maybe a little funky, but a little elegant too. So this is one component that I completed yesterday, and I want to lay it out. It's going to go sort of something like this. That's sort of where my head was going, right? So this is the first part of it. And then also the piece is going to consist of loop links. So let me get one. Wait, come back. It's probably off camera. Loop links. Which are these? And it's literally, the bead is sitting on a link that just has a loop on either end. So I knew I was going to have these different types of components. So what I've been doing now is I'm just going to make all my components. and have them ready to go, and then I'll move on to the next part of designing the piece. So I'm looping all of my check glass and a bunch of the lucite beads and a bunch of my crystal. So I thought it might be kind of cool to show you the looper in action. This is a great tool. I've used it a ton. I've used it so much I have broken the spring on the back of it. There's supposed to be a spring here. I broke it a couple years ago, it must be now. I was making tons and tons and tons and tons of loop links because I made myself a long beaded curtain, all out of check glass, about 3,000 or so beads worth of check glass, all looped together to make a curtain. It's pretty spectacular when the sun shines through it. So I ended up breaking my poor little looping pliers. So when you have the spring intact, the pliers are much easier to use, much nicer to use, but you know, I got used to using them this way, so you work it out, right? Okay, so the looper. You'll need a little dish. You have to have a little dish because every time you put the looper, the wire through the loopers, you're going to end up with a tiny little piece of metal. I don't know if you can even, I'm sure you can see the dish, right? Put that over there. You end up with a tiny little piece cut off. Little itty bitsy metal everywhere. So you want a little dish so you can work over the dish. And I'm really going to try hard not to bump the table too much because I know that was part of an issue in the video I did before this one. You will need a length of wire. I usually cut, I don't know, maybe 10 inches or so to work with. And I've already got a check glass pearl on one side. So let me finish this loop and then we'll start fresh with a new one. I'm sorry. And I have a tendency to hold this towards me, so I'm trying to remember to hold it towards you guys so you can see this. And there's a link. Okay. Now I don't know if you'll be able to see this or not. Maybe if I hold it with the light background in the background. When you put wire through the looping, you end up with a tiny little curve. And I don't know if you're going to be able to see that. You don't want to put this end through a bead, particularly if you're using a foil lined bead. That will scratch the inside of your bead. And if it's a smaller bead with a small hole, it'll be hard to get this slightly curved end through the bead. So you don't want to use that. So you're going to put that end back into your looper, to make your loop. And see that little piece of metal? It just dinked right into there. Now, at this point, I leave it on the looper because it's holding your wire for you, so why wouldn't you just leave it on there? And then we'll grab a bead. And sorry if the table moves, it's really much easier to lean on the table. Just feed the bead on, and then I will open it up, take it out. I've actually put my hand through the leg of the tripod, so I'm hoping that this doesn't go terribly wrong. Okay, now I'm going to feed the wire back through the looper. No, that's not going to work. Okay. And let me show you at this point. Hold on. In your loop links, you want a loop that goes down and a loop that goes up. This loop is down, and when I do this next one, the loop is going to face up. And let's finish this one, and then I'll show you what I'm talking about. You want to hold the loop. You're going to push it to make sure the bead is up against this backing plate, and you want your wire pushed up against this little pin right there. So I'm going to hold it, cuts the metal, and makes your loop. Now, if I wasn't doing this at a funny angle to try and get it filmed nice for you, I usually grab the wire out of the back of the looper so it doesn't fall. And you can also see how your loop might be a little open. That's okay. You just go in here with your round nose and you curl and tighten it up. I like it leaning back a little bit. And it doesn't need to be completely closed at this point, because you're going to be attaching another one here. You're going to be attaching either a link or another bead right to here, which means you're going to have to open this loop up anyway. So it's okay if it's not closed all the way, but you can see how there's not a lot of metal showing on either end of the bead, and that's how I like them. I don't want a lot of metal showing. I want the loops up tight to the bead. Okay, I'll put that there. Now, in the interest of not wasting too much wire, you'll notice I'm sort of, this piece actually is big enough to get another loop link out of it. But I want to show you, if I end up with a small little piece where I'm making also infinity links to go with this, I'll use the last little bit and make myself a link. So I'll snip off the end so I have a nice flat tip. And I always keep a measured piece out. I know exactly how long I need it to be. To make a nice little infinity link, depending on what size of my bail making pliers I'm using. And I'll show you this really quick right here. I just loop, check it, I pull it off. And there you go. There's an infinity link. And that way, I didn't really waste much wire. Alright, I'm going to pull some more wire off my spool. I'm very particular about the wire I use. I will probably at some point do a video about the type of wire that I use. I only get wire from Parawire. I don't get an endorsement. I don't get anything from them. I don't get nothing. They have no idea who I am, but they're my favorite wire. It's some of the highest quality wire, and I only use them. Their wire's great. And I'll do another video at some point talking about the types of wire and why I like them so much. But that's another video. Alright, so I've run out of length, and I run it through my hands a few times. This starts to work harden it, and it sort of helps to straighten it out a little bit. And I cut a piece. Sorry, that probably just... See, I just dropped my tools, and I know that's probably shaking you guys, so I apologize for that. Alright, here we go again. let's do this first. So I put a little bit in, and I want you to see that. So I have just a little bit in, and when this piece passes by this piece, that's what's going to cut your wire. Those are actually the blades in the looper, and that's why I said do it over a dish, because you're going to have a tiny little piece that comes off. And I just close it all the way, and now you've got your loop. Right? And now I'm going to find a bead. Let's do one of these. And feed it on there. And then I'll take it off. And there's a little hole in the back. So when you're feeding your wire through to complete your loop link, you're going to make sure that it goes through this hole in the back. But you're going this way, right? And I grab it, and you want to make sure that you're open, because you don't want to drag your wire against these, because it will scratch your wire. So make sure you're open. You want your loop facing down, because the next loop is going to go up, right? And you want to make sure your wire in the looper is pushed up against that tiny little post right there. And then just snip. And there you go. Now, I don't always close the looper all the way on the bead, and we'll do another one and I'll show that to you, because you can break your beads, particularly if you're using glass. You can crack, fracture, or just completely shatter your beads. You want to be really careful. Now I'll often get my round nose and I'll go in here and I'm going to tighten this loop up, because again, I don't like a lot of metal showing on either side of the bead. So I'm going to just roll that in a little bit. Let's see if I can show you something here. So I'm going to roll it in, but I also like the back of the loop to be bent back a little bit. That actually makes things sit straight up and down. And you'll like that better when you're linking these all together. It will just look better. All right, so let's do one more. All right, remember, find the little end that's got that little bit of curve to it, because that's the end you'll use. Right? So I made the loop, I leave it on here. I'm gonna grab a bead. I'm gonna put it on. Then I'll open it up. You want to make sure you're open, but if you open all the way, you don't actually want to open all the way, because then this top piece is going to be hanging on to the loop in there and you'll scratch up your wire. So you have to leave a little space all around, and then your loop will come right off. Turn it around, feed it back in. Right? Make sure your loop is facing down, that your bead is pushed up against the backing plate, and the internal is pushed up against the post, and just boop. Now, I'm not going to close it all the way. I have to look. Okay, right here. Sorry if I bumped you. See how this piece here is starting to push against the bead? A little push is okay, but with some beads, if you close this all the rest of the way, that pushes too much. You can crack the bead. It also tends to lengthen out your loop link so that you end up with too much metal on either side of the bead. Sorry if I just bumped you. But I'm gonna gentle and pull it out. Let me get my pliers so I can show you. And there it is. Now remember, it's okay if it's a little open. You can see how that end is opened, but that's alright because we're going to be attaching it. We're going to be attaching it to another link, so that's okay. And that's the one-step looper. So as I get further along, once I get all of these beads on their loop links, you know, those are my components. Once I get all the components made, then I'll start thinking about how I want to lay them out. If I want some kind of a pattern, you know, 3 and 1, and then 3 black, and then maybe a pearl. You know, I don't know yet. I don't know how that's all going to work out, and I will end up putting all of this onto a bead board, which I've probably shown you before, but I'll end up putting it all out onto a bead board, and laying out. This will help me gauge about how long it's going to be. This way my beads don't roll away, and I can keep stuff in the middle, and then I can just put some on, take some off, and figure out what kind of pattern I want to use. So I think that will do it for today. I'll let you guys know when the piece is done. I'll photograph it. I'll see if I can photograph some other close-up bits for you. Maybe some more stuff on the using the looper. Get some photographs of that, maybe. But thanks for watching. I appreciate it. Like, share, subscribe, and I will see you guys soon. Kiss and a peck and a hug around the neck. Bye.